I am going to do a roll call to get the meeting started so we can confirm who is on, both for the ADRC and the applicants will introduce themselves as they speak. So Miles Brown.
Here.
Thank you. Dean Burho, I have not seen. So he's a no. Sheldon Crosby.
Can you hear me? I'm on.
Yep, we can hear you, Sheldon. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Tim Eagles.
Present.
Thank you. Jack Kemper.
Here.
DPA.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Dave Quisenberry is not here this evening. Bob Sanford.
Here.
Thank you. And Peter Van Beckham. No, we don't have Peter. Okay. All right, we are going to proceed at this point. If anyone sees Peter jump in on an audio, let me know. And, oh, hang on. Of course. Okay. Peter, are you on? Peter Van Beckham, you've got to unmute yourself in order to participate. All right, go ahead, guys. I can see his cell phone on there, but all right. Peter, are you on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, now we can. Thank you. All right.
All right, sure.
That's okay. All right, we're ready to go. Bob Reeve or Tom Daly, who's ever starting, you guys are welcome to start your presentation. Thank you, and I apologize for the delay.
Thank you, Shannon. Good evening, everyone. Haven't seen you in this fashion before. My name is Robert Reeve. I'm with the firm of Scully Nixon Reeve at 79 Main Street in the Unionville section of Farmington. And we represent JDA Farmington, which is the owner of the property in question and also the applicant on the zoning application that was filed last month. The principal in JDA is Bob Weiner, who's on the call tonight, and he's available to answer any questions you might have. I'm going to make some brief introductory remarks, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tom Daly, who's the project engineer, for a discussion of the site. And Tom will be followed by Hernan Graziano from TPG Architect to talk about the proposed building. We also have some representatives from Chase Bank and Stonefield Engineering on the call, who Shannon can promote, I guess is the term, if they're needed to answer any questions. As you know, Chase Bank is the proposed tenant for this site, and the proposal to construct a new bank branch building facing Farmington Avenue, and also to preserve and relocate the historic portions of the existing building that are on the site. So Chase and Bob Weiner began this project about a couple of years ago now, back when Bill Warner was the town planner, and they worked with Bill. They worked with Mark DeVoe during his tenure, and Shannon's been involved right along, so that's been helpful for continuity. I believe they've been before your committee informally on at least 3 prior occasions. I see some notes from your meetings of March, July, and September of 2019. Mr. Weiner and Chase are very appreciative of the time and effort that both you on the committee and your staff have put into this project, and for the suggestions that you've made, which have in very large part been incorporated into the proposal that you have before you tonight. It's probably become apparent to you over the last year and a half that Chase really wants to be in Farmington, and they really want to be at this location in the village. And I think their willingness to persevere through this process and to make the changes they've made, and also to work with Mr. Weiner to relocate, preserve, rehabilitate the existing structure, I think is a testament to that. So on September 16th, we filed an application for site plan approval and for a special use permit with the Town Plan and Zoning Commission. So the project is before you tonight in a different posture than it was in the past. It's before you tonight on a referral from the TPZ under Article 2, Section 29A of the zoning regulations, the Farmington Village District Zone. And under that zoning regulation, your function is to provide the Planning and Zoning Commission with design support consistent with the standards found in the zoning regulations, the principles in the village district plan, the architectural heritage of the area, and the distinctive characteristics of the village district. And you're further charged with providing a written report and recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Now, the regulations allow you 45 days from the time we filed on September 16th to do that. I think Shannon's pointed out to you previously in some emails that our public hearing before the TPZ is on October 26th, which is just 11 days from now. So we would like to respectfully request that you issue your written report to the TPZ as soon as you can, so that we'll have an opportunity to address your recommendations in a timely manner when the matter goes to public hearing in 11 days. I also want to point out that under Article 2, Section 29D of the zoning regulations states that in the Farmington Center zone, new buildings must have a minimum of 2 stories of finished floor space. That provision can be waived by the TPZ if we can garner 5 out of 6 votes from that commission. And we've applied for that waiver. However, it's important for you to know that the TPZ can only grant that waiver if your committee gives the project a favorable recommendation. So in your report to the TPZ, we're going to request that you give that favorable recommendation to the TPZ. And the reason we're doing that, if you think back, most of you were around back in March of 2019 when the first iteration of this plan came before you. And in fact, it was a 2-story traditional white clapboard structure with black shutters. It was sort of designed to look like the Elm Tree Inn. And that was not well received by your committee. I think the minutes state that overall the committee was not in favor of the architecture of the building presented. And it was suggested that we reduce a portion of the building down to 1 story. So the reason that we need the 5-6 vote from the TPZ and we need a favorable recommendation from you is because we followed your advice. If you don't give that favorable recommendation, we'd be back to square one and presenting a plan that wouldn't require a 5-6 vote, but it's not what you're looking for. So again, we need a written report with recommendations, comments, and we need a recommendation, a favorable recommendation, so the TPZ can waive that requirement of 2 full stories of finished floor space. That's all I have for an introduction. At this point, I'd ask Tom Daly to talk a little bit about the site.
Thanks, Bob. I did not have the pleasure of being before the commission last time, but we've worked closely with the architect, and essentially our marching orders was to take what was presented to this commission at the previous applications and just simply detail it, but to really meet the spirit of that plan. And so as you can see on this rendering, we've done that. There's been only a few minor changes to this plan, and I'll walk you through those. But as an overall plan, we have the building located kind of at the corner of Backage Road and Farmington Ave, as you had saw before. The one minor change I'm going to present to you is the building has been slid back slightly. And that was really done for 2 reasons. One, there is a utility pole out in the paver area, the red area that you can see shown there in the pavers, and it has utility guy wires that are coming down towards the building. So they would potentially have conflicted with the building, so we had to slide that back. But more critical is if you look on Backage Road, a center island was installed. we really had to line our driveway up with that, and actually it lines up almost directly adjacent to the property across the street, which is, I believe, is the Elm Tree Inn. Really, for people to come exiting the property, they really had to have enough room to take a left and not kind of smash into that center island. So that was important, but we still met all the spirit of the design that was presented to you in the previous meetings. The landscaping palette of materials is identical. We actually took the plan from TPG and just detailed it. We do have, so we have our main entry. We have a crosswalk there with sidewalks. We did talk to Shannon and Bruce today. We'll be extending the sidewalks farther past the ATM to the rear to create even more sidewalk connectivity around the property. We've also shown you a palette of materials that of the landscape materials that we're showing on the site. As you can see at the proposed building, and I think you're going to see later on how attractive this building is, we really didn't try to compete with the building, and we have a fairly simple and traditional landscaping plan around the building. But back towards the relocated building, there was an opportunity to be a little more, I guess, elaborate or a little more expressive in terms of our landscaping. So using the kind of the curve of Backage Road and kind of putting a curve into the sidewalk, we've done a little more detailed landscaping there, and then back by the ATM once again where we had some more landscape to work with. But with that, we've given you a bunch of photographs to show you the same palette of materials. I think this is a similar palette of materials to the residential building across the way. So, and also similar to some other things you're going to see as you go up and down Route 4. So we tried to keep the spirit of that, but also they're attempted to be kind of low-lying and low-maintenance materials that will last for a long time. But with that, Bob, I would turn that over to the next presenter.
Hernan, are you on? I think you are.
Hi, how are you, everyone? My name is Hernan. I represent TPG Architecture. Most of you guys probably seen this floor plan since 2019. I remember some of the faces from here. I think that, you know, this is the sixth time that we're gonna meet. So the 5 prior times, I think that we took majority of the elements that everyone presented, had ideas, even gave us some features to follow around the neighborhood. One was the reservoir building, the other one was the firehouse on Unionville, Miss Porter's building, and the Farmington Bank building on Route 10. So we took elements from each of them, items that we felt could work with our design with this specific site. And we generated a 1-story building, but did present the idea that it's a 2-story corner building. So the main feature on Farmington Ave is, I think, 26 feet off the top of my head. So it does give the illusion of being 2 stories, but only is 1 story. And we created tall windows with transoms to give the height that a corner property should have in order to be visually positive from blocks away. And you'll see that in some renderings that we did from a block away, that it really does make a statement because of the height. At the same time, because the first meeting, it was kind of like a mass block, the idea was that everybody kind of agreed that it looked too massive. So we started carving away from it. Therefore, like the back of house, the area in the parking lot, that became a 1 story, with the entrance again being a little bit higher, but not necessarily 2 stories. We took details from the firehouse and the reservoir building and created a frieze on the top of the entrance with brick. We also started playing around with the, you know, we noticed that the masonry around Farmington is very classical, like antique So we took some elements from there and started creating soldier courses, friezes, gabling, things like that in order to bring back some of the historic to this brand new building and tie it back to the history of Farmington. If we go to the next slide, you can start seeing, hopefully, the color ones, the next page. You can start seeing how the massive is purely brick, with the entrance being covered by 5 feet. We created some kind of rain protection. That was one of the comments we received, whether it was like the second or third time that we met, that we should think about protection from the rain. So we created a small 5-foot canopy. And then on the right-hand side is clapboard material that wraps around the entire branch. And I think that it plays nice with the brick and the clapboard together. And again, if you zoom out a little bit, the north elevation, which is the parking lot side, we try to embrace the entrance by also making it out of brick with the same details that we were applying Farmington Ave, but not as high, so that it wouldn't take away from the building itself. I think the next page has the enlarged details. If you want to scroll to it. There you go. We use this page because, you know, it's one thing to draw an elevation, but the other thing is to see if it actually works. So this is the page that we actually started investigating how the frieze is going to look, how the trim around the window is going to look, how is the stone for the sill and the header for the windows are going to look like. As you can see on the right-hand side, that's how we interpret the sites that we looked at. And then the next page, you'll see some renderings that we have from Farmington Ave, looking at the site. One thing that the site plan didn't show that we thought would be nice, some of the board members have suggested it as well, to have benches at the corner because it's a paver area, roughly 25 by 25 square feet. They thought it would be, and we think that it's a good idea to show some kind of seating area that people can rest or relax while they wait, or just, it makes it more of a nice feature for the neighborhood. And then the following page, that would be coming again from the other side of Farmington, that the you can still see the branch. You know, I think that the colors for the clapboard being a light gray and then the trim work makes it a good pop, and you'll be able to see the branch coming from a block away from it. The following page shows what the existing building that's going to be removed would look like. And then obviously the branch sitting in the back, which in our mind has a nice balance in height and width. I think that that narrows it down for me for the time being.
Okay. Okay, that concludes what you need to share right now?
Yes.
Okay. Tim, given the online platform, I'm going to propose we go through each of the members one by one. I was going to go alphabetical order. If you prefer, you can go last as chair, but that's in order to keep this in an orderly fashion. We can certainly cycle through more than once, but that's my recommendation.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean,
we all like to jump in and talk, so I think that's a good way to do it to keep us ruly.
Yeah, well, it's the only way we're going to be able to do it, particularly in this
Agreed.
platform. So, okay. So, Miles, going alphabetically, that means you're up first. But like I said, we'll cycle through at least twice so that everyone has an opportunity in case a question down the road spurs somebody that went first to think of something else they want to ask. So that opportunity will present itself. So.
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is Miles. Given that this is my first time seeing the project and this has gone through several iterations, I don't feel like I should, jump too far with some of my comments. I think the building looks like it's addressed a lot of the comments. One question I had from the site plan perspective and looking at the brick plaza and landscaping was whether or not the brick plaza could actually line up with the brick form on the building. I'm not sure if that's possible, but that sort of just caught my eye looking at this for the first time. Yeah, I'm going to probably wait to hear the other respondents first before I make any further comments, again, just because sort of the first time I'm seeing it and I sort of want to understand how some of the previous comments were addressed.
That's fair. When you're talking about this plaza, are you speaking about this edge lining up? With
No, the other edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have it extend out to here so the brick matches the brick?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dean I don't think Dean has joined us unless somebody's going to tell me different. Dean Burho? Nope. Okie doke. Mr. Crosby, you are up. Sheldon, are you still? You probably have to unmute yourself. Yep.
Am I now on, Shannon?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, good. Well, I would like to congratulate Hernan on a very well thought through response to the questions and issues we raised many months ago. I think the building, the brick part particularly, has been sensitively designed, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Miles for his comment regarding the plaza. I think it would make a lot more sense if the brick matched the brick. I do have a couple of concerns with regard to this building, and then I have one with regard to the renovated building at the back end of the site. With regard to the main building, are the columns in the front entry, are those round or are they square? I think they should be square or rectangular at least. I don't think round would be the proper response on the Farmington Avenue south elevation. And then moving to the clapboard buildings on the Farmington Avenue south elevation that's on the screen right now, to the right, there is a slight jog between the clapboard buildings on the east facade. That jog does not seem to be strong enough. I can't tell how much of a jog it is. In plan, it looks like it's, I don't know, 10 inches, and in elevation it might be slightly more. But in any event, I'd either like to see it all the same facade or push it out a little bit more. I think you need to be in 18-inch range just to give it some presence. Because when you look at the perspective from the east, it doesn't really jump out. It's a little weak. The north elevation with that kind of half building, I understand why you're doing it and that it's an entry. It's not my favorite, but given all the other things you've done to this building, I'm perfectly prepared to leave it. I'm a little nervous that the windows all along the clapboard buildings are pretty low. There's a lot of blank space above them. I wouldn't necessarily suggest adding transoms, but I would suggest looking at that blank area above all those 6/6s, see if there wasn't a trim board you could throw in there or something. I don't know. But I would ask you to think about it. As I said, I think the bricks look very nice, but the clapboards are a little bare. The final question I'd like to ask is whether Mr. Weiner has a use for the building in the back. When we last met, he told us quite frankly he didn't have a use for it. And I'd hate to see a building put up without a use, in part because chances are it could get neglected, in which case we'd have a worse problem down the road. And so with Mr. Weiner, I don't know that that's all that fair. It's a lovely building. I'd love to see it get used, but I guess the question is really up to Mr. Weiner whether he can make that work. That is the summary of my suggestions. Thank you.
Okay. I am going to give Mr. Weiner a chance to respond right now so that we've got this going in real time. So Bob, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you for the question, Mr. Crosby. The building will certainly not be vacant. There's a couple of things I'm thinking about. I think it certainly makes sense as an owner-occupied office building. It may be that the town has some use for it. But the fallback position, which is perfectly acceptable to me, is I'll move my own office in there. So it will be occupied, and I have obligations under my lease with Chase to maintain it to the same condition that they're obligated to maintain their building. So there shouldn't be any cause for concern about its condition.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to continue. Tim, I'm going to put you to the end. That's the beauty of being chair, and then we'll cycle through everyone. So Jack Kemper, you're up.
Evening. I think the building has come a very long way too. I would echo what the others have said. A couple questions. Do the renderings reflect the building being moved back on the site plan?
Vernon can move on to
It does.
that.
It does.
It does?
Yeah, if you see the rendering and the site plan, it shows a rectangle. The last sheet, I believe. That's
So that,
why.
that rendering portrays the actual distance shown on the site plan after it's moved back. Is that correct?
Can I ask if you are not actively talking, if you can mute your microphone for me, please? We've got a little noise in the background that's a little distracting.
So I'm sorry, I didn't catch the answer. It is, that does reflect the place?
Yeah, this is her name. It does represent the right length where the rendering is going.
Okay, okay. And I know there's nothing we can do about the utility pole there, but that's kind of concerning. If we go to the other one, the other rendering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that that reflects the trees that are on the site plan.
That's correct.
Okay, that was my question.
And Jack,
Right.
those three trees are in front of Udolph's property, so they exist today.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's even better. So those are the actual size.
Yeah, the fourth tree over, so the one that's in front of the building is the proposed
Yes.
one. But
Okay.
the three, I think, were the ones put in part of the Route 4.
Okay. I think generally, I think you guys have done a good job. You know, per Sheldon's comment, if you could sort of do something with the blank space up above, I think a good part of it is a parapet, correct? To hide mechanical equipment.
So I was writing the questions down and I was gonna try to address them all at the end.
Yeah, yeah. So I would just say that's, but generally, I think you guys done a good job. So I appreciate it. That's it. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Tim LaBouffier.
Yeah, I would agree with Sheldon's comments about the space above. I do feel like, especially on the other side, that it looks a little much when you're turning that corner. So I think anything to kind of fill that space in a little bit with something would be nice. On the east elevation as well, yeah, right there, exactly. Thank you. It just looks like a little bit of a big box there, uncomfortably for me. But again, just above those windows. On the east elevation, I kind of, as I looked a little bit quicker, I'm on my iPad, so I had to get really close. But I think my concern was just the HVAC and all that. It seems like from the plan part of the east elevation that all that's hidden. It just doesn't look that tall enough to be hiding all that stuff. But looking at the plan a little closer, it seems like you've addressed it. So yeah, right there, there's some little. It does say all the units, so that's, I guess it goes down a lot lower than I thought. So as long as those things aren't sticking up as we're coming around the corner, I think that it looks good. And again, I commend you as others on the brick. I think the architectural details on the brick, especially in the front, are wonderful. And I appreciate that. I know that's a little more detailed and a little more expensive, but I do think that that's going to match very well with a lot of the other elements along the street. So thank you. That's all I have.
I'm just going to point out that on this particular elevation where the dimensions are provided, it's a 16 foot 4 inch to the top of parapet, and it's 12 feet to the top of roof. So we've got 4 feet 4 inches that's being used for these HV roughly. I mean, I know they've got to sit on a curbing and whatnot, but there's basically 4 feet to work with there.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome. Okay. No Dave Quisenberry, so I've got Bob Sanford. You are next up.
Okay, let me unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. I think I've seen all 5 or so reiterations of this, and I've got to say this is really, really great. I think they've taken, the design team's taken our feedback and implemented it. I heard the comment earlier about the 1.5 stories, and do feel that this committee should make a positive recommendation for the height of the building. It's what we asked for, and I think is very appropriate, attractive, and scaled correctly. I agree with the comment about the pavers extending the full width of the brick area in the front. The square columns seems fine with me. I'm okay with the jogs the way they are. I would presume that's somewhat driven by floor plan needs, and I can live with it. If it's not, and the architects on the committee think it should be greater, I'm okay with that too. I'm not sure I think flush would look that great. I kind of like a little bit of an offset. I know the design team will respond on the windows, but on the south elevation, the window height's kind of driven by the Chase sign. And it looks like that window height's been maintained throughout the whole, wood clapboard section or party, whatever it is. And I think, so I think that kind of makes sense. I can live with it the way it is. And I just, think we need to bring this to some conclusion tonight, since they're going to TVZ. And, if we leave it kind of open-ended, I'm not sure that's real feasible. But anyway, I'm content the way it is. But anyway, and I think, the signage is very nice too. I think they've done a great job.
Okay.
That's my comments.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up is Peter Van Beckham. All right, Peter, let's see. We'll see if I'm muting you or if you are. I've got you unmuted here. All right. You've got to unmute your phone, Peter, and you should be able to participate.
Okay, now you should be able to hear me.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Hi. I agree with the positive comments made. It's really been an enjoyable process to watch this building evolve, and I think turn into something quite nice. I agree with many of the comments previously made. I think the windows in the clapboard section could be higher, or there could be some sort of horizontal banding to break up that space. I thought the square column idea, I thought that was a good catch on the front of the building. There were notes that talked about what to do with the glass in the second story. And I don't know what's intended there, but my experience on this committee watching some of the buildings that have gone up, like Walgreens in Unionville and the other bank, Berkshire Bank in Farmington, putting white behind the glass doesn't seem to work very well. And in my experience, something charcoal or much darker looks more like what windows look like. I know we haven't talked about that, but I'd like to hear an answer to that. And I had some concern. We had talked earlier about lintels above windows and making sure that they were wide enough that they extended past the left and right sides of glass so that they looked more functional. And I think we've addressed that, but those who know better, I'd like to hear from them if they think that looks right. I don't have the eye to say whether it does or not. I think the jog in the clapboard section needs to be bigger too. I realize it probably can't come out further, which would mean the front of the building would have to go back a foot to give you that. But that may be addressed with some kind of raising the windows or a horizontal board above them. Something might help that jog stand out a little more than it does right now. But I agree that it looks pretty weak. And I also agree that eliminating it entirely would look worse than it looks right now. So those are the only comments and questions I have.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Eagles.
So once again, I would reiterate, I can actually turn on if you guys really want to see my ugly mug, I can probably turn my video on. But I would also reiterate that I'm very pleased, as is the rest of the committee. You guys really listened well, and I think this is, to Bob's point, I think we would all support the height of the building moving forward because this is really what we were looking for. I think the dimension, even though it's not a full 2 stories, is going to occupy that corner well and fit right in with the other buildings that are there. One question I had for Tom was the relationship of this building to the Elm Tree Inn and to the adjacent wood frame structure to the east. I know you said it got pushed back, but I didn't see in the plans, the site plan so crop tight. I'm not really sure where it falls. Have you any idea? I don't know if we want to go question by question, or you want me to just go through all my comments and then we can come back to everything.
Well, this one, I just think this one might be easy to give you the perspective. So
could you zoom in on that, Shannon?
Yep, if you can see the current screen, this has the adjacent building. So that should give you the perspective of that's the elm tree there. So it's sitting, even with being pushed back, it's still sitting prominently at that corner.
Yeah, proud of the elm tree, but not as far out as the other guys. Okay.
Yep. Okay, is that helpful?
Yep.
Great.
My only thought on the plaza, I like the idea that Miles brought up and others confirmed as far as the width of that. I'm not so sure that a brick paved plaza with a brick building is necessarily the right look or what somebody might want to maintain over time. As pavers tend to move a lot more than others, I'd be happy with a concrete plaza of some sort, which might be easier long-term to maintain over time. But ultimately, I'm interested in what you guys might propose there. The entrance canopy, the round versus the square, I honestly could go either way. With that, as long as, you know, proportionally they you know, are properly proportioned with, you know, with the adjacent, you know, with the height of and the width characteristics of the canopy. I'd love to see them with proper emphasis, so that they're, you know, they're not just straight vertical columns. To look kind of like builder columns on the front of this thing. I believe the detail in the bottom right corner that Shannon's got there is showing pilasters out of brick on the back wall behind, which I think we had asked for. And I think that's a great detail to tie the whole thing together. And to answer, I think it was Peter's question, the overhang of it's actually rendered in two different ways. If you go, as far as the lintels go, the detail shows 8-inch overhang, which I think is appropriate for the header. I do not think it's appropriate necessarily for the sill. I think the sill could, you know, come in and be shorter with the header being out the full 8 inches. But it's drawn differently in the detail than it is in the elevations, which shows, you know, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches maybe on that one. So I would agree with the 8 inches up above, and I like the sill dimension on the small elevations personally. I think that's much more appropriate. I'm surprised that nobody brought up the rear entrance canopy because that was such a hot contested item before, that there was a lot of push to try to connect that roof to the other roof and everything else. My gut in looking at it is I'd like to literally get rid of if it were my building and my design, what I'd push for is to get rid of the gable there on that elevation, do the brick, have that be raised higher, but not be a big gable thing that extended backwards. You know, on that, can you go to the rear elevation, Shannon? So leave the sign, leave the you know, all the fun coursing and all the rest of that, and just put a brownstone cap on that thing, you know, as a horizontal and be done with it. Don't extend it back so it's kind of this fake gable-y thing that's going a few feet back on the roof. I think you still get the pop that you're looking for the entry, without just being fake architecture up there doing not much else. One of the things that we talked about before with the big windows, I'm a little concerned about the proportions of the divided lights. They look different in the rendering. They're more vertical in the rendering, which is appropriate, and they're square in these windows. So I'd like to see them more vertically oriented. And we also talked about making them look like a double hung window so that there'd be a horizontal band in the middle of the window and not just one kind of sheet of almost factory looking, you know, factory glass or something. I think it's more appropriate for a building of this era to have a monumental double hung in those locations I think we talked about doing like 9 lights over 12 lights or something. It was, when we originally talked about it, I believe it was, you know, it wasn't like 9 over 9 or something. It wasn't an even amount. I think the tops were smaller than the bottoms or something like that, almost like a cottage window. And then to reiterate Peter's comment on the spandrel glass, I totally would agree with the charcoal spandrel on the back side of the glass. I don't think the white works very well or looks correct in terms of how you see a window all day, every day during the daylight. So I would agree that the spandrel glass, if there is any, wherever they exist up above there, that should be a charcoal back painted spandrel. That's it. You guys did a great job.
All right. Miles, I'm going to come back to you just briefly. Did anything, since you kind of declined comment at the beginning, is there anything you want to add before I turn this back to the applicant to address comments? And then everyone will go through one more time after the applicant addresses the comments that have been presented.
No, just to commend both the design team and the design review board for, I think, doing a great job in making this building come a long way from the beginning. Just flipping through the pages, I think they've done an excellent job. Again, both the design review board and the architect and the owner. So good job. I agree with a lot of the comments. Some I can take or leave, but I think it's a good job.
Okay. All right. So Hernan, we'll toss it back to you, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you all for the comments. I think that everyone made good points. And I'll let you know some of the items that I may or may agree, and how we can meet in the middle in a way, or make it work. Miles and the second reviewer, I forgot the second reviewer's name, but the pavers, I think that that's something that the client will be able to compromise. I think it makes sense to have whatever material we pick, whether it's concrete or pavers, to make it the brick building instead of being halfway. So I think that's a valid point. The square columns, we have done both elevations with square and round, and the firm and the client thought that the rounds look better to us. But I mean, if that's something that it needs to be, we can speak to the client and see what they feel like. But I thought that it could go either way. I don't think that there's a set of rules about having square or round columns for that. The next one was windows on the clapboard. I don't feel like they can be any bigger because actually the sheet that we're on right now, the roof's gonna be at 12 feet. Even if we start thinking about the structure, if we have a 12-inch joist, now we're down to 11. We're gonna have ductwork, lights. Now we're down to probably like 10 feet. There's not much room above those windows to get any bigger than what they are right now. So that's one of the reasons why we left the windows height as is.
Is there an architectural treatment that could be added, Hernan? I think that's the other thing we heard with respect to the window, that this is just bare. So if the windows, understand the windows can't be bigger, is there something else that would be appropriate?
So if I can jump in, Hernan, this is Tim Eagles, only because I have a hard time sitting here. But the one thing that we've done in the past is literally to just introduce some horizontal trim at an appropriate height to create an upper piece and a lower piece just to break the clapboard. So if you look to your right on that, the Backage Road west elevation, you know, you've got the windows, the big windows, not on that one, Shannon,
Sorry,
on the one.
yep.
So if you look at a brick portion, you know, you've got that horizontal band that kind of cuts it into a base story and an attic. You could do something very simply, I think, with this piece of it, you know, to be able to kind of set that up doing the same thing with literally just a piece of trim running across to create vertical, you know, separation between like a base and an attic piece of that wall.
You think that you would be okay if we were to do that on the north elevation? And then the south elevation and the west, but not on the Farmington Ave because of the band of the logo itself.
Well, I think the logo, maybe you do a solid panel to put the logo on that somehow works with that band. Maybe the band, you know, dies into two sides of a solid panel or something.
We can definitely look into some options for all of you guys. The next question was Bob about the setbacks for the facade. It looked like it didn't have enough of it. There's a sheet. I'll tell you which sheet it is. I have it open on my computer. But we do have the dimensions, and it's 24 inches and 18 inches, which is kind of like what you were saying it should be and it should feel. So like that'd be page, yeah, that one. So the parking lot setback is 18 inches, and in the front it's 24.
So this.
I think he was talking about the side along the east elevation. That right there. I think, Sheldon, that's what you're talking about, right?
That's only a foot right now, but
yeah,
we're playing with a small site. We don't really have that much room to squeeze anymore. The program itself is driven, and if we were to go in more, then every space gets tight, and then we have to reevaluate the program that has been set already. We can't go out anymore because of the property lines. So the only other way to create a bigger bump out is to shrink and go in.
you could do another 6 inches on each side. You've got 4.3 feet on the east side and 2.5 feet on the west side to the property lines.
I'll ask. I don't see a problem with it, but I'll ask. So as long as we go out, not in, right? The window transom, we're okay with using a gray or a brown type of film. That was the intention all along. I think that the renderings do show it's not white, but it's like on the gray, light gray tone. But if we all agree that a brown tint is better, we can apply a brown tint on it.
I think, Hernan, charcoal, like a dark gray is better than a brown.
Okay.
Just because of blue sky, and if you start looking around the windows, that's really the color of glass during the day, so.
Okay.
Unless there happens to be a shade inside of it.
Nah, yeah, window film, charcoal is fine. And then you brought up the still linter, and you quoted on the renderings versus the large detail. We didn't revise the renderings just because it's a lot harder than it looks to like just make these lintels an inch bigger. So what we did is just enlarge the detail, and that's where we capture that it was bigger.
Are you okay with having the header lintel longer and the sill lintel shorter, like was discussed.
Do you want to go back to the elevation? Would be,
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I went too far.
yeah. I mean, I personally liked how it looks. I like to have symmetrical. I do understand that sometimes symmetrical doesn't work for everybody. If you all think that it should be less, I think that that's something that can be worked out.
Okay.
I think you guys jump in if you want, but you know, a more traditional detail would be a smaller sill than the lintel because there's no structural reason to have it hanging that far out.
And it can be
Right, the
short.
lintel needs to project far enough to be well supported, and the sill is completely supported underneath. That's why it's shorter.
Yes.
I agree.
So, right, so typically you'd have maybe 4 inches on the bottom and 8 inches at the top or something, if you're gonna do a lug sill that goes into the brick.
Yeah, we can shrink the sill by a brick size. That should give you what you're looking for.
Great, thank you.
And you've got the lintel thicker than the sill, which is appropriate.
Sorry, on my side you broke up.
You have the lintel is thicker. It's not dimensioned, but it's thicker than the sill, and I'm just saying that that is correct.
Okay. And then the entrance at the parking lot. I think that if we were to redesign the entrance again, we're going backwards. We had multiple elevations drawn, presented for this elevation, and this is how it has been for the last 2 times. And I think that the previous times it was okay. I think that there were issues here and there, but overall everybody liked it. I just don't think that we can go backwards and redesign that entrance again. It just, you know, we tried tying it to the building and it just looks weird. If we flatten it more, that backside starts becoming a little bit chunky and you kind of lose like the entrance of it, even if we were to do it with brick. That's just, you know, our thoughts as designers.
Did anybody else have any feelings on that? I mean,
Yeah,
I like
I do.
Go ahead, Peter.
Tim. So this is Peter. It's been a strong recommendation of ours from the beginning that this be changed in some way, and that hasn't happened. So I, for one, am still troubled by it and would like to see it modified. I thought the flat roof idea was pretty good. It's consistent with the rest of this part of the building. And I think the brickwork, the fact that it's brick, but also the brickwork, the size of the windows, the entry, does make it prominent and welcoming, still allows for the signage. I don't see why it would be a problem to put a flat roof on that.
Hey, Tim, if I might.
Sure.
I've never liked that roof and always hoped it could tie into the main building. That said, however, we did give clear feedback to the design team that what they've drawn would be okay with this. So, you know, I get what they're saying, kind of 11th hour, we're you know, kind of changing gears again. I personally, I like your suggestion of getting rid of the fake gable and making a straight band across, but and I would certainly favor that. But I think otherwise, it's, you know, again, we gave them feedback at a prior meeting that we were okay with this look.
Okay, I did not recall that that was the case. I recalled it more, as Peter said, that we gave recommendations to change it and it never got changed, but
It's highlighted in the minutes that I've seen.
All right, maybe I missed those.
Yeah.
The flat roof would certainly be a good compromise if the owner was willing to do that. And I agree that it's less, I think you used the word, Tim, fake-architecture. It'd probably be less expensive. It'd certainly be less expensive to build that way as more of a simple parapet versus a fake roof. But that's my comment.
so I guess, Hernan, if you can just, you know, if you can review that with Chase, and if that's acceptable, that's cool. If it's going to be like this, I guess that's okay as well. It's just been a thorn in our side for a long time that still remains. But to Bob's point, you know, is it the most offensive thing? No, it's just kind of goofy looking, because you're going to see it, you know, coming from different parts of the street, that there's only a little chunk of building back there, which isn't really a chunk of building.
We will pass on the message.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna. Hernan, did you have anything else you were tracking to respond to?
I think I addressed every question unless I missed one, and if I did, I'm sorry, and I can read.
Yeah, I'm just flipping through real quick. Really green pavers, problems, jargon building, windows, sign. Okay, all right. Committee members, and just to make sure we are all set, for you folks, we are going to cycle through one more time. If you don't have anything to add, then fine, just simply say that you've got no further questions. But I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to at least one more time to offer a comment if there is any, so that we make sure that this has been a complete review. So Miles, back to you. If there's anything else you'd like to add, feel free.
No further questions.
Thank you. Dean is not here. Sheldon Crosby, anything else to add? Sheldon, you've got to unmute yourself.
My concern is with the rear elevation, the brickwork there. We just discussed that, whether it would be flat or gabled. I'm indifferent, quite honestly. If it's flat, I just want to make sure that that roof is above the clapboards by enough. Don't give me any of this 12-inch stuff. And make it 2-3 feet so that it's clear that it's above the clapboards that are behind.
Okay. So you're speaking like this entrance
Yes.
here is, if we square this off, it should be 2 to 3 feet above this edge here.
On the elevation, Shannon, it should at least be as high as the bottom of the eaves of the roof in the front.
Got it.
Seems to be about the right size. Somewhere in there, Hernan. I would leave that up to you, if you go that way.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
Good job, Hernan. I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, so next in line is Jack Kemper.
Hi, I would be interested in seeing the flat roof or the flat parapet version if the client is up for it. I think it's not a big change to the building at all. The other thing I would say, I have no issues with keeping the round columns, as long as they are, you know, correctly proportioned and have, as Tim mentioned before, antithesis, so they actually are, you know, correct columns. And that's it.
Okay. All right, hang with me, folks. I'm writing notes at the same time. Tim LaBouthier, go right ahead, please.
I have no further questions. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. All right, there is no Dave Quisenberry. So Bob Sanford.
Thanks. I'll just comment one more time on that rear entry. I'm fine with the flat idea. And I guess if they can, you know, if they so choose to show us that look, since it does sound like it might be less costly to build, I presume that's something we can review by email, but I would certainly be open to that. I think it would be preferable to the little stubby roof, but I can live with the stubby roof. That's it for my comments.
Okay, thank you. Peter Van Beckham.
I'm all set.
Thank you. And Tim Eagles.
So just two things. Shannon, if you can go to the detail again. That detail sheet, I think, is the next one after this.
Yeah. Two down. This one right here.
Yeah. So if you go to the bottom right corner detail and once again there, as far as that's showing the blown up Hernan, but that lintel should be 8 inches over the edge as well, just like the windows, please.
Will do.
And then the only other thing was, we didn't talk at all. I asked a question about the actual windows. The windows I'm most concerned about are the biggest windows on the building, and the proportions of the divided lights and the thought of a simulated double hung.
I can answer that. We looked into that, and the windows that are shown right now is what the client would prefer to use. We had the double windows, as you had mentioned it in the past, and it just didn't look right to us. We prefer this type of look for these 7 or 8 foot type of windows. And Pella makes them. So it'll be a standard off the shelf type of window.
Yeah, Pella makes double hungs too. So I personally won't agree with that window in that location for the most prominent windows on the building, but.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment one way or another about this window? You're talking about all of these on the first floor within the brick, correct, Tim?
Yes, both the proportion of the divided lights being shown as squares and the thought of it being one large pane of glass as opposed to some sort of simulated divided light. Very similar to what we did, with the Conair stuff over at Stop and Shop.
Okay. You're looking, so basically it would have a look like there's a double hung somewhere in this vicinity. If you said 9/12,
right,
it'd be roughly in this location. Okay.
Right.
This Jack, I think the south elevation shows the double hung. Or, excuse me, the north elevation shows the double hung look. The one at the entry we were talking about?
Yeah, here? Because
yep.
this is north. All right,
yeah, in the north.
Yeah, I gotta get,
oh,
yeah,
well,
I don't really think it's.
It was just my little thing. I'm okay with them being one piece. I would really look at it maybe 6 high instead of 7, just to get the proportions better. I think that's reasonable. So the proportions are more similar to the proportions of the the small windows up above them on the front.
Okay, on the front, okay.
Yeah, because this is Miles. If you go with a 9/12, they're actually going to get more horizontal in proportion to Muntin. So I don't think we want to do that.
Well,
Be less
I think
square.
this is Peter. I think you could go to 6/6.
Yeah.
And that would give you a vertical aspect.
I agree with the comment. Those should be a double hung look, whether it's a real double hung or a simulated cross rail. But I don't think windows like that would have been, you know, would have been indicative of the look of this building.
So the 6/6 look is basically this window, but coming over here, right?
Yeah, that's not enough lights.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That's not enough lights to fill. I agree with Miles that I wasn't saying literally 9/12 because obviously that's how many they got in there and they're gonna stay square or get smaller if it went into the double hung. But some proportion, we had talked originally of a smaller light over a bigger light for a window like that would have been fairly typical. But either way, I think whether it's equal, you know, equally proportioned with the rail in the middle or a smaller over a bigger, either way, they should be, the light should be vertical in nature, not either horizontal or square.
And I need to correct myself. I said 6/6, and what I meant was 9/9.
Okay.
So Hernan, they do, to Bob's point, they make, and I don't know that Pella for sure does that, but I know many window manufacturers will make a fixed or casement type window like what you guys are looking at, but it's got a simulated rail. They can put a simulated rail wherever you want so that it has, from a distance, it won't have the shadow line of a double hung, but it'll have the feel of a heavier rail in the middle and literally just still be, you know, all in the same plane, one big window.
Understood. We'll relay the message to the client and we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. That's all I got.
Okie doke. That sounds like everybody's had their say. Bob Reeve, on your side, is there anything else your team wants to add or convey with respect to this?
Can you hear me, Shannon?
Yep.
I don't know, Tom or Hernan may want to jump in, or even someone who's not been promoted yet. But I think our concern is that we've heard a lot of comments. Not all of them were in agreement. So I think the committee needs to come to a consensus and give us their written report.
Yeah.
So we can modify the plans to the extent we think we can, and then present that to the Planning and Zoning Commission and say, you know, here's what we were asked to do, here's our response, and as you know, they're the ultimate arbiter of these questions. So I would like to expedite this. I don't think it's really practical for us to do a redesign, get it back to all of you, to wait for your report, because we've only got 11 days before the hearing.
Correct. My thought is that this would be, you know, presumably it in general sounds like a favorable recommendation is what the tone has been, perhaps with a list of some additional items to be considered by the commission, and then that can be conveyed to the commission, and would give you folks an opportunity to have that discussion with the commission. So, and that can be, you know, the list of it seems a handful of other things that the committee would like to see integrated. It sounds like some of them are fairly easily integrated, and others perhaps may take a little more discussion with the design team in Chase Bank, but perhaps feasible. But that's what I'm thinking is perhaps the most productive way to move this ahead.
I think I agree with that.
Okay. So, Mr. Eagles and commission members, committee members, I think the best way to frame this would be for someone, if someone is willing to take a lead on a motion, and then a second with respect to the recommendations to TPZ, and then we can have discussion and make additional recommendations, a list of recommendations that you folks would like put forth to TPZ.
I can make a recommendation.
Okay, is this Sheldon?
Yeah, I recommend that the commission approve in concept the design as shown, with the caveat that the architects respond within the next week in a PDF form, the redesign of the rear entry, addressing both the roof element of the building and the window divided light pattern.
Okay, I don't know that we're going to get that back in a week, Sheldon. So I think it might be more helpful at this point to frame this with a list of items that the committee is recommending back to TPZ, because again, this is a referral back to TPZ, and have this phrased as recommendations that TPZ can incorporate then as conditions of approval. It would give the applicant a little more time and can present these items then to TPZ. And what I would suggest is one of you be there at the meeting to read your letter into the record for TPZ, and then can also be available to answer questions should the TPZ have questions regarding these recommendations.
So Shannon, we technically have, I think Bob said like 45 days or something, which obviously none of us want any part of any of that. But is it feasible for us to create this list over the next couple of days or day or whatever, kind of distill the notes you took, get it into a list format, but make the motion tonight to recommend, moving forward with everything contingent upon, the recommendations that are in the list or something like that?
I think that would be appropriate.
Shannon, I think this building is far too important to leave to a process that doesn't have a hard contingency on it. We do have a couple of concerns, and I don't necessarily know how to write this, but if the note or the recommendation could reflect that we really do want to see the applicant come back with a response to the issues we brought up. And not necessarily recommendations, they're strong suggestions. At least we'd like to see it. We may end up agreeing with the applicant, we may not. I don't know, but we need to see it. And I don't know that will impact the approval from town planning and zoning. If it's a roof height, we've approved in concept of the building, I think that they'll probably be good to go. It's kind of my sense of this.
Well, TPZ in the past has definitely given approvals with the, what do you call it, contingency to come back. That's not the right word. I can't think of the word. To come back to us for certain items. So.
To finalize, so it could be a condition that it gets.
Condition, there you go.
Finalized.
Well, That'd be fine, because we're more than happy, as the applicant can tell, to keep them moving on track. We understand that. We're all subject to the same, so be happy to do that as long as we have a good hard contingency on a couple of issues. That'd be fine.
That's fine. We also have to reasonably bring this, the applicant has been before the committee a number of times to date. So we do need to get this to a reasonable end as well. So
That's true, Shannon, but please remember, it's probably been 9 months or a year almost since we last saw this. So it's not as if we've been dragging our feet.
Nobody's been dilly-dally. I'm not suggesting
Right.
that anyone's, dragged their feet, but there has been a number of iterations of this. So, and this does need to proceed, and there are statutory timeframes that we deal with. So we can, I do want to leave this evening with at least a referral if we want to finalize the conditions. I think we can get most of the conditions verbally here this evening. It sounds like we've got the end, the north entrance, the windows, and a couple of other things, but those seem to be the utmost, the lintel and sill widths to be consistent, but I believe they've agreed to that. But we can itemize these things and then put that forth in the recommendation to TPZ. And again, whether it's Tim or another member of the committee, if Tim's not available, should be at the TPZ meeting to read this recommendation into the record and be available for questions.
Yeah, I think by all means, because we want to help support it too. If they have questions about what's going on, and we want to support all the good work these guys have done.
Correct.
In getting where we got it. So we don't want them all of a sudden come back and say, well, we want a white box on this corner.
Correct. Right. We want to make sure that this continues to move in the direction that it's been going after a year and a half of work.
So I'm good with the idea of us favorably referring it and specifically noting the height, and then requesting the TPZ have the design team just circle back with us on that north entrance and the tall windows. It sort of sounded like most of the other suggestions we had, they're going to cooperate with, the lintels and the divider trim piece on the clapboards. It seemed like we were pretty split on round versus square columns. Sounded like they were good with the paver idea extending to the brick extent. I think the only other thing that sticks out in my mind was the offset, which sounded like, if you were correct and they had the room to do it, they would do it. But, we all understand they've got a floor plan to deal with and can't and don't want to cut that back. So I don't know if what I'm suggesting we can do, but that's sort of the way I see it.
Make the motion, Bob.
Just made it.
Made. Is there a second?
Second.
Did you write all that down, Shannon?
I got it. Jack Kemper, you got the second?
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? So what I've got is a favorable referral to TPZ with the request that the applicant come back to ADRC to finalize the north elevations and the windows within the brick portion of the elevations. And also with the understanding the other items discussed tonight that have been verbally agreed to will be finally agreed to and made formal in a plan.
We haven't mentioned the roof.
I said the north, the north elevation. This is so that's the roof on the north elevation.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The only question I forgot to throw out in the whole thing when we were talking about it, and this elevation reminds me of it while we're there, is the HVAC units. Hernan, are those the actual heights of the two HVAC units and the fan on that roof?
Approximately, yes. We are from the cut sheets.
Okay. Those, and the curb, Shannon, as Shannon pointed out, they will be on a curb.
Yeah, well, they'll be on a curb or on dunnage. They're going to be elevated from the roof, but we incorporated the box as the overall height versus like doing like a little notch and stuff.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, they have to be completely screened. You won't get your CO if they're not completely screened.
And
Okay.
Shannon,
Do we want, in our motion, do we want to be specific about our support of the overall height of the building, that it's not a two-story building?
that's exactly
I think we do.
for sure.
Yeah,
That was part of my motion.
that's what I thought.
We got lost in it, Bob. It was really good, but it was long.
Sorry.
Thanks for helping us catch up.
Got it. Okay. Any other discussion?
No, I just want to thank Hernan and Chase and Tom and everybody for, it's going to be a great building and we appreciate it.
Okay, well, we've got a motion and a second. We've discussed, so then I'm going to do a roll call vote with the committee members for this positive referral to TPZ. Okay, so I just need everybody to confirm your vote with respect to this. Miles,
Approved?
okay, Sheldon,
Approve.
Jack Kemper,
Yes?
thank you. Tim LaBouthier,
Approve.
Bob Sanford,
Approve.
Peter Van Backum,
I
and Tim Eagles.
I,
Thank you. Sorry, I just want to make it official, and there's no, I mean, with roll call, no abstentions and no objections, so. Okay, I will get it drafted. I'll send a first draft. What I typically do is send a first draft to Tim. I'll let him digest it, and then I'll get, once he's had his comments, I'll get it out to the entire committee. So the first draft will go out tomorrow. It'll get to the entire committee, hopefully on Monday. And it'll be ready then to go to TPZ next week with their package in preparation for the meeting on the 26th.
you said 20 seconds, the meeting, Shannon?
No, Monday, October 26th.
Shannon, I think I'm going to be there anyway that night, so
Correct.
I can probably do it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for me? Bob, your team's all set?
I think we are, unless someone else has some questions.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody's, there's no hands raised, there's no chats. Okay, so we are all set with the applicant. Committee members, I need you just for a few more minutes. We've got to take a look at the meeting. We've got to adopt the meeting schedule for 2021. Chase Bank and Bob and Tim and or Tom and Hernan, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
it. Bye.
Good night.
Okay, everyone, final order of business for the evening.
That was easy.
Yeah, relatively easy. The schedule for next year, we've hit the third Thursdays of the month, as is typical. Sandy outlined the schedule for us. Unless there's a question or concern with something, if I can have a motion and a second to approve the meeting schedule, and we'll be all set.
I move to approve meeting schedule.
Okay. I have a second.
Second.
Okay. And any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Thing is, I always ask
Aye.
every do it earlier, and I don't know if Zoom changes that, but it seems like it's always 7.
It's always, yeah, most of the land use meetings are 7 in order to allow folks to get home from work and do whatever they need to do and then prepare for the meeting.
What time is your bedtime, Jack?
7. Sheldon, they do. West Hartford does it earlier. They do it at 4, right?
They do it at 4, yeah, because the town plan and zoning department wants to get home.
Yeah. We can consider it. I'd have to look to make sure.
And the historic commission is at 4. The historic commission, the Farmington one.
The Farmington, that's the only other board that's
Yeah.
at.
Yeah,
All
but
the
I mean,
meetings are at 7.
I wouldn't spend too much time on it. 7 is fine.
Okie dokie. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Shannon.
everybody. Thanks, Shannon,
Thank
for
you,
putting up
Jack.
with all of us.
Bob,
Thanks, Shannon. Good job.
Peter,
Thank you.
Now
Miles.